Turns out most Americans agree the economy is rigged. According to a new poll by Marketplace and Edison Research, over 71% of Americans believe that the U.S. economy is rigged against them and in favor of the powerful. Now, the poll asked a simple question. Which of the following comes closer to your opinion on the economic system in the U.S.? One is the economic system is rigged in favor of certain groups. Two, the economy system is fair to all Americans. And three, don't know. Now, most Americans selected rigged economy. Now, what's interesting about this is that it didn't matter the race of the person or the gender or even political party. So this goes around and covers Republicans, Democrats, and independents. Basically, it shows that no matter who you are, no matter who you ask, everybody knows the simple basic truth that right now the economic system is rigged against a regular working person. Interesting. Now, why do Americans feel this way? Well, there's a few good reasons. Apparently, according to economic data, the typical middle-class family is still earning about the same amount of money as they did in 1996, and that's adjusted for inflation. Now, basically, wages have been stagnant for the typical middle-class person, but wages, when it comes to CEO compensation, have skyrocketed. So regular people aren't getting paid anymore, but CEOs have increased their profits. And that hasn't come back down to the worker. And that's one of the big problems here. All that money is being hoarded overseas in places like the Cayman Islands, and they're getting massive tax breaks on top of what they've already made. The average American looks at that and says, that's fucked up. That's rigged. I don't like that system at all. Why? Because it's not fair. It's not a good system. We put in our labor, we're expected to get paid a fair wage. Well, right now, as I said, a lot of people are not getting paid a fair wage. In fact, the Great Recession that we had in 2008 that was caused by the bankers ended up eroding a lot of people's net worth. They lost jobs, they lost homes. It just was a terrible situation for the middle class, and especially the poor as well. So you have that going on, and you ask people, hey, do you think the system is fair? Or do you think it's rigged? Well, obviously people are going to say, it's rigged. How do you explain the rise of both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump? Now, both of them are completely different on a lot of the issues. But when it comes to anger against the establishment, against the status quo, both of them attract people who are very angry about the system and how it's been treating regular people and working families. Bernie Sanders rails against NAFTA, against some of the trade deals that have helped manufacturing jobs get outsourced. Now, it used to be in the past that you could get a manufacturing job. I know I've worked in manufacturing and actually get a pretty damn good wage. I made nearly a living wage back when I was doing factory work. I don't make near that now, but I used to. You'd be able to actually live off that for a while. But now, those jobs, those very same jobs, they've either left and went to China, went to India, or Mexico, or they left and then they came back at diminished wages, where you used to be making $15, $16 an hour. Well, now they come back, you're making $9, $10. You ask every American, and they'll tell you that is not a good system. What happened to those good jobs? They don't exist anymore, or they don't pay what they used to. The American worker has been getting the shaft. And that's why one reason Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are both have really gotten a lot of support from the working class, from people who are fed up with that system. Now, of course, when it comes to solutions, well, Bernie Sanders has way better solutions than Donald Trump. That's why I supported Bernie Sanders. Raising people up to a living wage where everybody gets $15 an hour. That is a living wage, because $7.25, in Bernie Sanders' words, is a starvation wage. Whereas Donald Trump said, I don't know, I think wages are too high. And then, of course, he backtracked, flip-flopped, tied himself into a little pretzel with tiny hands, and, well, we don't know exactly where Donald Trump stands on that. But he brings up the issues. He does bring up the issue of trade. And that I have given him credit for, and he's also brought up the issue of money in politics. I've also given him credit for that, even though he really doesn't plan to do a whole lot, at least on when it comes to money in politics, which I think is one of the bigger drivers of income inequality. You borrow politicians, and you tell them, okay, I want a tax cut, and, well, you get your tax cut, that money comes from somewhere. That's no longer money that goes in the economy. Basically, it ends up making the rich richer, and the poor either stay the same, or they get their benefits cut, which impacts their net worth greatly if they don't have programs to go and access, for example, affordable education. Well, they're not going to be able to help lift themselves up out of that poverty. And so, as I said, that it kind of explains why Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are much more popular when it comes to the election itself, right? But here's the thing, right? Now we have Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Well, they're both trying to say, hey, we can unrig the system, which is incredibly laughable, especially when it comes to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a beneficiary of the fucked system. She's not going to unfuck the system. No, she's going to, well, I mean, at worst, she'll make it a little bit more unfair. She'll give some tax breaks for bankers, for the rich. She'll make some deals on entitlements, and it'll end up being essentially the same. The rich keep getting richer, and everybody else stays the same, or loses a little bit of net worth. With Donald Trump, we have no idea what's going to happen. And that's kind of dangerous when you're talking about people's livelihoods, when you're talking about the economy. We don't know the impact of Donald Trump's proposals. We know some, how it's going to explode the deficit and the debt, but on some of the others, we don't have enough policy specifics to even say what this impact would be. But it's my guess that a lot of these policies would benefit Donald Trump. It's not so much of a stretch to see that Donald Trump would be in support of things that help Donald Trump. I'm just saying. Now, as for Trump, I don't think he's going to do anything about unrigging the system, because he once bragged about using this rigged system. And he's went bankrupt 4 different times. And then said, hey, look, I used the law. I'm not going to change it. Why? Because I used it because it worked. I'm a smart businessman for taking advantage of the system. So why would I change that system? It's sort of the same arguments, people have against Clinton. She benefited from the system. Why would she change the system that she benefited on? And so when it comes to people who feel like they've been left out, like 71% of Americans do, according to this poll, they're not going to get any relief from the 2 presidential candidates. And that means our politics overall has to change. Something has to change, because we're going to continue to keep getting these same old establishment politicians that will do nothing to help us, but only things that will help themselves. And that's why we've got to change the system. We've got to continue to fight the political revolution, fight for the political revolution, to change our politics so that it works for you and me, and not the corporations, and not the billionaires.